The Terrence Shannon Jr. trial is finally underway this week. What's going on? Let's talk about it. Locked on Illini. Let's go.
You are Locked on Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
My name is Sonny Verma, and thank you for making Locked on Illini your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me at IlliniCast if you want to have these conversations on Twitter. If you want to help the show grow, it'll cost you nothing. All I ask is you hit that like button and you hit that subscribe button. Today's episode is going to be a little difficult to talk about just because of all the sensitive information going out there. So if this is one you want to skip, I completely understand. But me being a part of Illini Nation, addressing Illini Nation pretty much every single day, I feel like at least the least I can do is kind of give a Cliff Notes version to the audience about what's going on. But first and foremost, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Now, as I said, today's going to be a topic which I have to kind of be very respectful in discussing. So I want to be very open and I want to be very upfront that while privately I might have my own thoughts, my own opinions, and that may come along with some biases, I'm not going to be necessarily addressing those biases in this episode. This episode is going to kind of be just about presenting the information that's kind of readily available, which you may have not found. I'm just kind of being the middleman here and letting you formulate your own thoughts. I'm going to do my best to not try to influence you in one way or the other. If that might irk some people might want me to present information in a certain way, and I understand that and I respect that. But speaking of respect, out of the respect for the judicial system here in this country and the process of trial, I'm going to let the results play out before I try to offer any of my own thoughts and opinions on the trial, because ultimately I'm not a lawyer. I can see the same information I'm about to give you. I can read it on any website. I can, follow dialogue on Twitter, but I'm not a lawyer and I don't really know how this process is supposed to work out. So I'm going to let those who've been trained to do it do their job. And then once the results come out, we can talk about it then. There'll be a future episode kind of talking about what the results will be. And honestly, you might know the results as you're watching this episode. This episode will be coming out very early Thursday morning, and that's when the ultimate decision, the conclusion of the trial, is supposed to be taking place. Today, at least for this episode, I'm basically just going to give you an idea of what happened the first 3 days of the trial, what's been discussed, what the process has been like, who's come up on the stand. So this show is going to more be about very informational, just kind of what's been talked about, who's been spoken to, or what they've said. And I will have a later episode, whether it's going to be here on Locked on Illini or just in case, follow me at IlliniCast, just in case I go live on my other show, which is a little bit more long form. But regardless, obviously, this all has to do with the incident that happened in September when Illinois went to Lawrence to go play the Kansas football team. Terrence Shannon Jr., with Justin Harmon and a couple other basketball players, went to a bar called Jayhawk Cafe, and supposedly an incident happened. What happened, we're not too sure, but there was a case filed, a rape charge. And again, I'm going to be very careful with the words I choose. As soon as that case or that charge was filed, Terrence Shannon Jr. was immediately suspended from the basketball team in very early January. he missed about 6 games, and then there's a lawsuit from Terrence Shannon Jr. to the University of Illinois. And because of that whole process, the Cliff Notes is basically because the trial was still ongoing, Terrence Shannon Jr. was still allowed to come back to the basketball team. And then we all know the rest. If you're watching the show Locked On Illini, you're most likely a basketball fan, and you know the rest of how the basketball season went, at least. But finally, this week, the actual trial itself started. Now, obviously, I'm not at the trial, so all the information I'm feeding you, I'm getting from another source, and so I want to be very upfront about that. I've read articles that I'll be referencing from the Lawrence Times. The News Gazette is out there, and everyone's favorite lawyer, Mitch Gilfillan, who has been on Illini Cast before and who I've been communicating back and forth with and will be having an interview with once the decision comes out. He's been doing an absolutely fantastic job of recapping almost in an hourly basis what's going on. I believe he's actually at the trial, so we're getting firsthand documentation from him. So definitely follow him on Twitter. I'll put his information in the description here. But, I just wanted to let you guys know, obviously, I'm not there. All this information I'm relaying to you is from articles that I'm reading and from Mitch himself. We'll just go ahead and get started right after this. The Boston Celtics are now up 3-0 on the Dallas Mavericks. And it looks like if you want tickets to the game, you've got to act quick. Gametime makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Gametime app actually go down the closer it is to tip-off, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So the theme of day one, which was June 11th, was the victim was able to give her story. And I guess you could say the theme was the DA, the defense, was questioning the level of depth that the police investigation ultimately went. And I'll get into some details. The incident that led to the charges took place just after midnight, September 9th, at Jayhawk Cafe. The woman, who was 18 at the time, had gone with a friend to the bar's martini room, where she claimed she was groped, then digitally penetrated by a man she did not know. She later told police that she identified the man as a basketball player after searching through teams' rosters online. In her opening statement, Douglas County Assistant District Attorney Samantha Foster described the scene at the Hawk as packed, and then detailed how the woman, who was white, was attempting to leave the crowded bar when she was waved over by a tall black man wearing a mustard-colored shirt. Surveillance video from inside the bar, showed by prosecutors later in the day, illustrated the chaotic scene and showed both Shannon and his accuser within feet of each other prior to the alleged incident. However, there was no video presented showing the two standing side by side, as the woman described in police interviews and in court. Foster said the woman believed she was walking over to talk, exchange phone numbers, or share Snapchat information, but instead found herself being close by her assailant's right arm and then touched without consent. The victim took the stand immediately after the opening statements Tuesday morning and told the jury that she and a roommate had gone to the Hawk looking for friends she believed would be there. Although she had already been to the bar and one other earlier in the evening prior to returning to the martini room, the woman said she only had a few sips of alcohol and nothing else through the evening. Much of the defense attorney Trisha Bath's cross-examination focused on inconsistent statements the woman made to police and to healthcare professionals who participated in the investigation. Bath asked the woman to describe how she had been pulled through the crowd by the man she identified as Shannon. The woman said that the man at the Hawk had grabbed her wrist or arm to help her through the crowd, but Bath presented a transcript from preliminary hearing to show that the woman had earlier said specifically that the man had not pulled on her wrist because she was carrying a drink in one hand and her phone in the other. Bath also brought up differences in how the woman characterized the amount of alcohol she had consumed. During a police interview and in court, the woman said she only had a few sips of a drink. However, a report generated later at Lawrence Memorial Hospital said the woman reported having 3 drinks over the course of the evening. Swabs of DNA were taken from the woman's sensitive areas, and there was no DNA linked back to the defendant, in this case being Terrence Shannon Jr. Lawrence Police Detective Joshua Leitner was a final witness to take the stand. Leal asked him about his responsibility as the lead detective on the case, then asked him about the evidence Leitner collected from the scene of the incident. I responded to the Hawk, and I collected some surveillance video, Leitner said. I contacted the manager and downloaded video footage from 3 or 4 cameras. Approximately 30 minutes of video was played in court. A 25-minute video timestamped at 12:23 a.m. on September 9th shows the woman and her roommate slowly making their way through the martini room as a crowd of people stand shoulder to shoulder near her. During the video, Leitner identified Hunter Dickinson, Kevin McCullough, and Elmarco Jackson among the crowd. At one point, a man's hand and part of his arm can be seen around McCullough's neck. Prosecutors submitted into evidence a photograph from former Kansas basketball player Arterio Morse's Facebook page showing him with a tattooed left hand and watch on the same wrist that appeared to match the hand and arm seen around McCullough's neck in the video. Now, why is this information important? Well, Morse was accused of raping a woman in his McCarthy Hall room in summer 2023. Those charges were later dropped by the DA's office for insufficient evidence, but they revealed another accusation against Morris that was remarkably similar to the allegations currently being made against Shannon. In that case, which was investigated by the Kansas Police Department with some assistance from the LPD, Morris allegedly rubbed the crotch of an 18-year-old woman in the martini room of the Hawk less than 2 weeks before the incident alleged by the woman in Shannon's case. No charges were filed against Morris in connection with the alleged incident at the Hawk. He was released from Kansas's basketball program after being charged in the case that was later dropped. Sutter continued to question Leitner. Leitner said he had simply taken the woman's word on whether she had been drinking the night before. He said that the reason he hadn't taken photos or measurements of the martini room was because he was already familiar with the space. Sutter asked Leitner about an incorrect date in his report, and as well as a reference to McCullough, where his name is spelled McCullum. His pointed questions came in regard to Leitner's limited investigation into witnesses who might have had additional information. Sutter asked if Leitner questioned any bartenders or security staff at the bar, any friends or roommates of the accuser who were at the apartment when she arrived on the night of the incident, or whether he had contacted either Shannon or Morris to ask for their memories of the night in question. And then Sutter gets a little spicy here. She asked, "Is that because none of them actually walked into your office to talk to you? It seems like if it's not falling in your lap, detective, you're not making any effort to look. Did it occur to you that you might have a serial sex offender on the loose?" Leitner said he had not pushed further because he believed the woman was sincere and certain in her identification of Shannon. And you were satisfied with that? Sutter asked. Yes, Leitner said. And that's basically what happened mostly on, it's actually day two. Day one was the selection of the jury process. So that was a recap of day two, as I kind of described. Thank you again to the Lawrence Times. I'll link the article in the description here. You heard the victim's story, and you see that the defense attorney really questioned the level of sincerity and depth of the investigation that the police and the police chief really went through to try to find out the facts about the case. And then right after this, I'll get to what happened on day three on Wednesday. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So on Wednesday morning, the trial continued, and the first witness brought up was the victim's friend, who she had attended Jayhawk Cafe with. And according to the friend's testimony, she and the woman walked through the martini room in the basement of the Hawk, but her friend was becoming overwhelmed by the packed crowd and noise in the room. She testified that the two were going to leave when a man gestured to her friend, indicating that he wanted her to come to him. She said she thought he was cute, the friend testified. I told her to go over there. I figured it would make her night more fun. Both women have testified that they recognized Kansas basketball player Kevin McCullough Jr. near the bar in the back corner of the martini room and could see other athletes in the same area. A friend and Kansas football player bought each of the women a mixed drink, but both testified to only having a few sips of the drink before the alleged incident took place. The friend said the scene inside the bar was so chaotic she didn't realize the woman was in distress. In fact, she said she led the woman out of one door of the martini room and back into another because she was planning on saying goodbye to others before leaving. The next thing she knew, she said in court, the woman had bolted. Video played in court on Tuesday showed the woman walking back upstairs after the incident to exit the bar. The friend can be seen trailing behind the woman who reported the assault, keeping a hand on her back as they walked up the stairs. Next up, the next batch of witnesses, I guess you can say, were two different parties that were collecting and analyzing the DNA of what was collected that particular night. And just to give, just to kind of speed through the process, I don't want this episode to get too long. Ultimately, everything was inconclusive. There was nothing that showed any part of Terrence Shannon Jr.'s DNA there, but there's also nothing that, I'm trying to phrase this very carefully, but at the same time, the people who collected the DNA did not say that the final results were conclusive. I hope that makes sense. Again, I'm doing my best here. I'm not a lawyer. After that, we had Hunter Dickinson, former Michigan player, now a Kansas basketball player, someone who obviously has a relationship with Terrence Shannon Jr., in particular with the recruitment process. Obviously, Hunter was trying to get Terrence to go to Michigan when he ultimately came to Illinois. And Dickinson said that he had known Shannon for several years, and that McCullough, another teammate, also said he met Shannon when the two played together at Texas University. Both men said they had no recollection of Shannon being drunk or behaving inappropriately. Dickinson, who said he had a good amount to drink, said he and other basketball players stayed in the back corner of the martini room to party with teammates rather than seek women. Shannon was with his own teammate and standing near the Kansas players. He was kind of doing his own thing, Dickinson said. Whenever I had an interaction with him, he seemed to have control over himself. McCullough, who testified via Zoom, said he was the unofficial host of the evening, echoed similar memories of the night at the Hawk. He had no recollection of any women specifically near Shannon and said he saw no interactions with women that would have stood out to him. McCullough said he left the bar that night having no idea an incident had occurred. In fact, he had said he heard nothing at all until a social media post from ESPN announcing the charges against Shannon. McCullough says he wasn't contacted by a Lawrence police detective until February or March 2024. He said she had no recollection of any women roughing up against Shannon or being questioned by the LPD about that kind of interaction. Yeah, he said, I would have remembered that. Next up, you had a couple witnesses who were closer to Shannon, including former Illinois player and teammate Justin Harmon, and also Reba Jo Daniels, who was an instructor and academic advisor at the University of Illinois. Basically, both kind of collaborating for Terrence Shannon and confirming his character and how they would think it would be very out of character for him to have performed the actions that he was accused of. The final two witnesses presented by the defense attorneys on Wednesdays were a former police officer and retired investigator and a computer forensics expert. And again, just to kind of fast forward through, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to what I think caught the most traction on Wednesday. That was a text exchange between a group of friends of the victim when the ESPN article broke. And the ESPN article broke on 12/28/23. The group text messages offered into evidence below. Friend, who provided the ESPN article. OMG, the best friend responded with, you got him. The alleged victim. Yep. Yes, sir. The friend. Got his ass. Smiley face with dollar bills for eyes and coming out of the mouth. The use of money signs was blown up on an exhibit by the Terrence Shannon Jr. attorneys. Now, again, that tweet by Mitch went pretty viral, disclosing that information. And so if I didn't do a proper job describing it, I apologize. It's hard to describe what the emoji would look like. Again, just find Mitch Gilfillan on Twitter, on X, and you can kind of see the emoji that he used. And ultimately, that pretty much wrapped up day 3 of the trial. That's where we stand now. Obviously, on Thursday, we should be hearing the closing arguments. Each side's going to have about 30 minutes, and we should have a decision one way or the other. And once we do, we'll try to go ahead and, talk about it a little bit. Again, I have been very clear and careful with the words I choose, and I hope you all understand why. I have a lot of respect for the judicial system here in this country. I have my own thoughts, sure. I have my own biases, sure. But that's not what this episode was about. Please leave a comment, a like. You appreciate this. I wasn't sure whether I was going to release this episode or not. I will write down the articles I'm referencing, and I'll write Mitch's Twitter account in the description if you want to kind of follow along. And obviously I skimmed through the article. If you want to read it more in depth, I'll give you that opportunity. But thank you again for watching. Stay tuned. There's more positive news, at least from the Illini front, that I believe will be coming on Thursday. And if it does, again, I'll try to release a video right away. Follow me here. Make sure you hit that bell button so you'll know immediately when that news might be breaking. Also follow me at IlliniCast, both on Twitter and here on YouTube. We also go live on that channel very, very often. But Thank you so much for helping me through this very difficult episode. It's unfortunate that this happened. Whatever the result may be, I'm sure everyone wishes that it hadn't occurred, but there's no real easy way to end this episode. So I'm just going to say, just take care of each other. I'll love you guys.